Dyson calls this a watershed moment in his life, which made him realize that he wasn't a particle physicist. With four parameters, I can fit an elephant, and with five, I can make him wiggle his tongue. One of the great things Princeton taught me was that I was not smart enough to be a physicist. In most occupations, if you are in the 90th percentile, you are going to contribute. In theoretical physics, you're going to be one of the top 50 in the world, or you are really not helping out much. Hello everyone. In this video, we'll talk about two amazingly great professionals and two incidents in the lives of these amazingly great professionals, which actually helped them in deciding about their career choice. So, why are we talking about this? And who these two individuals are? We'll talk about this as we progress in this video. So, why are we talking about it? We are talking about it because these two incidents may just help us in highlighting the importance of being self-aware, humble, while people are evaluating their career choices, and especially when they have tasted some amount of success in their careers. So, without much ado, let's talk about the first individual. The first individual is an amazingly great genius mathematician, Freeman Dyson. So, what about Freeman Dyson? This incident that I'm going to tell you is Dyson's interaction with a legend, and that legend is Enrico Fermi. How it happens, what happens, so let's move on. Dyson, along with his team of graduate students, is working on a particular area. He finds a meeting with Fermi, goes there to meet Fermi, and while he meets Fermi, very excited he is, of course, and he shows the graph on which some theoretical numbers are plotted. And along with that, Fermi's experimental numbers are also plotted. And when both the numbers are plotted, there seems to be quite good amount of agreement. And that's the reason for Dyson's excitement about it. Of course, he gives it to Fermi, and Fermi looks at it briefly. And looking at it briefly, he says something very important. And this is what Fermi says. He says that I am not very impressed with the work that you guys have done. And then, with a little pause, he gives the reason. And let me share with you what the reason is. This is what the reason he gives. He says that there are two ways of doing a theoretical calculation. Either you have a clear physical model in mind, or rigorous mathematical basis. And then he says to Dyson that when I look at this, I find that in your case, neither is present. And of course, so it's not very encouraging, definitely. So what Dyson does is he checks about the numerical agreement that is there. And to that, Fermi asks him a question. And the question is that how many free parameters has he considered? And Dyson starts counting and he says 4 free parameters. And to this he gives another legendary response, and I'll read it out to you. He says, and this one he refers to the famous mathematician Johnny von Neumann. And he says, with 4 parameters I can fit an elephant, and with 5 I can make him wiggle his trunk. So this happens within 10-15 minutes. Dyson goes back to Cornell's and tells the team that we're not going to take it any forward. Of course, the team has invested a lot of time. I think it also meant that this would move forward to their PhD program. So it was a disappointment. Nevertheless, the thing got over there. And now here comes the important part. The important part is that at that point in time, and I'll read it out to you, nobody was aware exactly whether what Fermi was saying tomorrow will turn out to be correct or incorrect. It was based on the principle of the two parameters, or the way of thinking, the way he talked about the physical model in mind. Either you have a clear physical model in mind or a rigorous mathematical basis. And in within minutes he could see that none of those two things were present. That's all. On the basis of that, the story ended. Later on, it was found out that Fermi actually saved them whole lot of years that they would have invested, because the very idea of the theoretical basis on which they were pursuing it was not correct. And it was found out when quarks were discovered much later, not at the point in time when Fermi told them this. Now, why I'm narrating this incident? is because Dyson calls this a watershed moment in his life, which made him realize that he wasn't a particle physicist. Now remember, this is Freeman Dyson saying this, and even at this point in time, he was very well accomplished. And he goes on a little bit further. He says that he realized that he doesn't have those instincts that are required to pursue a career or a great career in this field. His gifts are in mathematics. And then he goes on to say, which is far more important for us to remember, in his own words, he says, a theory that is well based on physics, I can do marvelously with using it, but I am not able to invent a new theory. And because of that, he moved to what he said, or what we all know, the field theory on the mathematical side. He got interested in mathematics of field theory. So here comes the choice in this particular example. And Dyson says, I made that choice that I would go with mathematics and not physics. Now the second person and the second incident. So the second person that I would like to talk about is the founder of Amazon, Jeff Bezos. He wanted to study physics, and he was studying physics at Princeton. Now this incident, of course it's there on the internet. I think it's not one of those many incidents which are quite popular about Jeff Bezos, but it's an important one for the discussion that right now we are having with respect to career choices. So, of course, he wanted to study physics. He joined Princeton. I think the class strength was 30, and as you can imagine, the best of the best students were there at Princeton, as they are always in different streams. And physics was, of course, one of the most interesting ones. So, what happens is, this is what he says, that I was doing well in terms of the grades, but what was the difference? The work was laborious and it was real hard work. And what he noticed was that out of that class of, let's say, around 30, there were 3 or 4 those brilliant gifted ones who were doing it in an easy way, almost in a casual way. They could absorb those abstract concepts easily and solve problems for which Jeff would perhaps be investing 12 hours. And that's the reason I think he uses the term laboriously. He was also studying computer sciences and of course was getting drawn towards it a little more. And then comes this particular incident that I wanted to talk about. He narrates an incident about solving a partial differential equation. Those of you who don't understand this, don't worry about it. Even I don't know much about partial differential equations. Nevertheless, let's move ahead. So he and his roommate worked for almost 3 hours, and they could not solve this particular partial differential equation. So of course you look for help, you reach out to people. So they reached out to somebody who was considered to be, in the batches you have some people who are really the geniuses of the batch. So I think this gentleman was Yasantha. He was a student from Sri Lankan origin. They walked up to him and I think they showed him the problem. He looked at the problem and I think he spent some time on it, and bang came the reply, cosine. And both of them were amazed. They looked at him and he said cosine is the answer. And then I think Jeff asked him that, did you solve this problem mentally? And I think to this he said, no, not exactly, but a few years or months back I was working on a similar kind of a problem, and I could see similar patterns, and therefore I could arrive at the answer, which is cosine. And let's go to the room and I'll show you how to solve it. And then all 3 of them, they went to the room, and I think he worked on 2-3 sheets of paper, and finally the answer was cosine. Now, what it meant for Jeff was important, and I'll read it out to you. That was an important moment for me. This is Jeff Bezos saying in one of the interviews, because that was the very moment when I realized I was never going to be a great theoretical physicist. And then, of course, this is the insight, the important thing. The reason he gives is, in most occupations, if you are in the 90th percentile, you are going to contribute. In theoretical physics, you got to be one of the top 50 in the world, or you are really not helping out much. And then, of course, Jeff changed his major to electrical engineering and computer science from physics. In a very joking manner, in one of the interviews, he says, one of the great things Princeton taught me was that I was not smart enough to be a physicist. So in both the cases, you would realize that the subject was physics, and both these legends in their respective fields realized through a particular incident and having an interaction with someone. In that case, it was Fermi. In this case, it was Yasantha. That this is not the place for us, and of course, then they chose the profession of their field. Now, what are these two incidents telling us from the standpoint of career navigation? And these are a few points that I would like to read out to you that I have written. Lessons that we can derive from these two incidents. 1. Reflecting on the failure or challenges while you are successful and accomplished in a certain way is important, like it happened in case of Freeman Dyson and Jeff Bezos. Second, and I think which is equally important, arriving and acknowledging honestly your limitations and your gifts or your natural talents. So in the case of Mr. Dyson, it was mathematics. In the case of Bezos, it was computer science, and then of course from there he started. I think he must have thought of also becoming an entrepreneur, or maybe not. But definitely he realized that he was getting drawn more towards computer sciences. The third one, reaching out to people who can help and give inputs and feedback. And not always it will come in a very sandwiched manner, and I think at times it comes in a very direct manner, like Enrico Fermi gave. At times it comes in a very subtle way and you have to interpret it, like in the case of Jeff Bezos having an interaction with Yasantha. The last part, taking action in the form of navigating your careers. After you have understood it all, I think it's important for you to now take action, whether you want to continue because there is some amount of success that you achieved, or you really think that this is a time for you to think for a career navigation. That's where at times you can do it on your own, like in these two cases it happened on their own. At times you need help of somebody who can help you, guide you, listen to you, help you in your thinking patterns. So that was the idea of making this video. Two incidents, legends in their own fields. And by the way, before we end this video, some of you may want to know what happened to Yasantha. So if that is what is crossing your mind, in the description section of this video, we will put a link which will tell you about Yasantha a little more. So thank you very much, and thanks for watching this video. Bye bye.